Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Vario and Turganis and Nell and Ishtuz and Mathpesto, David Ratner. Today we have a very special guest. Live in 54 minutes. I don't know what that's about, but
Don't know either.
live now. Live now. Um
We're on.
yeah, we're on. Okay, so RockyRoer is one of the most creative constructors in variant Sudoku. He has 14 CTC features and 87 puzzles on LMD. And I went through them, and I think almost over 70 of them are brand new rule sets or different rule sets from what he set before, many of which receive tremendous praise from the community. He's an educator by trade, and his puzzles are also educational. Please welcome RockyRoer.
Hey, everybody.
So I
So,
have to ask you first because this is very important. Is it Rocky Rower or Rocky Row? Because I know Simon and Mark say Rocky Row, but I think that might be a Britishism sort of thing.
no, it's roar like a lion is what we always say. Rocky roar.
Oh, like a lion. Okay, like
Oh,
roar. Yeah. Okay. So is it? So where does the name come from actually? Because is it like a rower, like a paddle rower kind of thing?
um, no, well, it's kind of ironic actually. My last name is Norwegian,
Hmm.
and it means field that has all the rocks like plowed out of it. That's nice and smooth. And then,
Mm,
of course, my name Rocky means full of rocks. And so, yeah,
right.
it's a
So it's like
dumb
a
oxymoron.
oxymoron. Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay. Now I'll ask you what I told you I was going to ask you. What was the first puzzle that you ever sat down and set?
Um, that I sat down and set. Oh gosh, that's awful. Um, I got a lot of echo. I'm trying to see if I can deal with a second.
Oh, for me?
Stream is just echoing about 15 seconds delayed, and so I
Oh,
keep
yeah.
hearing myself talk. Oh yeah, here I am again.
Why don't you mute yourself?
How do I do
Or
that?
mute. The next to the play or scrolling should be a mute. Not there? Oh, you muted yourself in Discord, I think.
You would think I'd be able to handle this. I run tech at school a lot and things, but
Mute the yeah, the browser tab or YouTube video.
um, here.
Hello, Codec and Zeno and Doomdiat and Ambrose and Tallcat and the Kagisho is also here. Got it?
I'm not sure where I'm getting this echo from. That's really unfortunate. Okay, I will try to endure with it, but I don't know. Hopefully, it doesn't sound bad and echoey for everybody else, but I am definitely hearing myself later, so
Well, I don't
not so
hear
bad
an
anymore.
echo.
Did you turn something down?
It's not bad?
Not as bad. I can live now. I can do this.
Okay.
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 So first puzzle that I ever like tried to set. I well, it was back in 2020. Same um, same as many, I think, getting into it with the lockdown and so forth. I had watched a few videos and thought, I've got an idea. Maybe I can make that. I had no idea how to actually set a puzzle.
Hmm.
And I found a website where you can get random Sudoku puzzles and then hit solve and it'll give you a solution. So I found one of those and got a complete grid and then put that into Excel because I don't know if F puzzles existed yet, or I certainly didn't know about it.
Right.
Um, and then started to draw borders around various things. It was a killer Sudoku with a Um, uh, the idea, I think it was sometimes, always, never, where it was, if it contained a certain digit, the page total was correct. If it didn't, if it contained a different digit, it was always wrong. And if it contained a third digit, it was sometimes right or sometimes wrong. I think it's on LMD. It's one of the first I published. I don't think it was the first I published, but it was near there. And I just kind of drew, like I said, cages around things. And I thought, well, if it was a 3-cell cage that was 25 in total, then it would be obvious that that was a lie because you can't add up 3 cells to get 25. And then I'd find some other things, and I don't remember how it all came together, but I would do that, and then I would erase the grid and try it. And if I could solve it, cool. If I couldn't solve it, I went back and did a
Right.
different cage or redrew something. And I ran into so many, I didn't know it at the time, deadly patterns. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I don't know how to do this, and I can't make the cage work,
Right.
um, and so forth. But eventually, I found a combination of cages that was solvable, and that was the first, I would say, puzzle that I've made in recent times. I was really young, um, 10, 11, 12. I loved puzzles of
Hmm.
all different sorts. I remember going on car rides a lot and traveling various places. And I don't really remember much the places I went, but I remember getting a big book of games or a magazine of, was it Dell pencil puzzles or something like that, and working my way through some of those. And um, I'm sure that young middle school me wrote a few random puzzles there, but then kind of fell away from it when I went to high school and college and all that sort of stuff, and didn't really come back until COVID hit. So,
Right. Did you ever go back and sort of review that puzzle that you made with the killer cages, and did you see if you were happy with it or you just laughed at yourself or something?
I may have gone back and solved it again. I'm a little embarrassed when I go back and look at some of those first puzzles at just how awful they look. Um, because like one was made with Google Slides and a table and all this sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
I think the sometimes always never one is an Excel sheet. And I think I went back once F puzzles became a little more popular and tried to really create a link that was doable. Goodness, you're fat. Sorry. Um,
What's the cat's
and
name? I know they'll ask, so.
that one, think that's staccato, and the other one's legato, musical terms. I don't remember which one's which. My daughters would be very upset of me, but
All right. Sorry, you were saying?
it, um, yeah, I definitely went back and added some links to some of those first puzzles once F puzzles introduced cosmetic
Right.
pages and things like that. For the longest time, I I knew F puzzles was there, but really couldn't use it because all my rule sets were weird,
Hmm.
something different that F puzzles didn't handle. And I was really thrilled when Eric put in cosmetics so that I could at least draw cages or lines or something
Right.
like that. It was
Without
good.
the thing yelling at you or putting red digits everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. The turning conflicts off was a great. So.
Right. So it seems like you've always been setting with some novel rule set. Did you ever like try just setting with a normal rule set, or I don't know if there is a puzzle on your OMD or if that you publish with a normal rule set.
Um, my first love, I guess, in solving Sudoku puzzles was killer Sudoku, and so I have certainly set a couple of just pure killer Sudokus before. Um, but I don't know. Even when I was young and going through those pages of puzzle books, I would I would be drawn to the puzzles that weren't normal.
Right.
So the crossword puzzles that had a some variation in it, or I remember a word search where the inside 6 by 6 part of the grid didn't have letters, and so part of
Hmm.
searching was you had to fill in a couple of those things, and I loved everything that was just a little bit different. And I don't know, I when I became a setter, that love is still there. So uh, normal classic Sudoku, I can't really stand. Remember when it became popular, and my sister and dad, I think, had bought a little version of a bunch of Sudoku puzzles, and I did one, and I was like, okay, this is dumb. Why? It's not mathy. They're like, you should love it. It's you're a math teacher. And I'm like, it's not math. It's just
Yeah.
these could be letters. They could be Lucky Charm symbols. In fact, I've seen a Sudoku on the back of a Lucky Charms box. And if the numbers don't actually get used as numbers, I
Hmm.
was just like, yeah. So um, I think that's why I enjoyed Killer, because the numbers meant something, right? You could add them up, and there's just that tiny little bit of arithmetic, and um, yeah, I've definitely set a couple of those, but I've always been intrigued by the slightly offbeat, and so
So did you solve any variant Sudoku before CTC? Like you watched CTC?
I
Since you
hadn't seen a lot actually.
right.
I think I think slightly before I saw CTC, I had discovered is it Crazy Dad has a website that has a bunch of different types of puzzles,
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
think
it was
there's something like that.
some other
Yeah.
website where there was a couple of them, and that's where I a source of killer puzzles, and
Hmm.
really enjoyed that. Um, I don't quite remember when in that whole process I saw um, a first video. I do remember, and maybe I can share this particular one.
Yeah.
What really turned me on to puzzles, I found that particular one. Where is it here? Um, yeah, this is the one. So how do I share that tab? There. And the puzzling antidote to self-isolation. So this, I think, may have been the first CTC video that I watched mesmerized the whole time. It's a cageless puzzle. It has it's a killer puzzle, and you also it has numbered rooms clues like in it,
Hmm.
which is way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
That got popular a few months ago, maybe, but um, I think it's Shinya um, made this puzzle, and it was so fascinating to watch Simon solve that, and to it was gorgeous.
Hmm.
And I printed it out and solved it myself, and and then I went back to the video, and I was, oh yeah, that's what he did, and so forth. And I've probably done this puzzle 3 or 4 times now since, just because she's got 3 or 4 of these variations on LMD if you want to find it yourself. But
Hmm.
that definitely was the puzzle that inspired me to start watching. And then there was just another and another, and every time it was a different type of variant. And I was like, "What is that? Kropke
Hmm.
dots? What? That's cool." Um, and then my biggest inspiration, I think, let me show this one. How do I turn stop streaming and share? Puzzle of the year, question mark. So this is Fistimafel's Killer Sandwich. And when I saw this and I saw an open grid that has no numbers in it and there were clues along the outside, I don't think I'd ever seen anything with clues around the outside before. I was hooked. I knew this was going to be an addiction that would last a long time, and I've tried to set puzzles kind of like this. I've got a lot of puzzles where there's outside clues that interact with things. This is a sandwich puzzle, and I love sandwich. I think
Yeah,
I
know.
kind of you're coloring sometimes, and there's some arithmetic involved and so forth. And it's just my type of puzzle, and how the outside clues make it so you don't need something to disambiguate ones and nines, no givens. I just
Right.
yeah. So that was definitely my inspiration to be a setter and to set specifically sandwich puzzles.
Wow. That's the beginning of the sandwich. Sandwich
Exactly.
craze. It can all be traced back to one moment.
It took me, I didn't know that this was it. I literally had to go back and think, why do I love sandwich puzzles so much? And setting it. And I found the cageless killer puzzle that Shinya set. And then I just looked forward in time, and it was about a week later, I think, that this one came out. And I was like, oh yes, that's why I like sandwiches so much. So I'll watch it again. I haven't seen it in probably 2 years, but
Right, well,
see if I can put those links in the chat if anybody's interested in wanting to watch that. But
yeah, I'm sure they can find it. Speaking of CTC, how long did it take when you first started studying to get your first CTC feature?
I think my first puzzle that I published on LMD was in June. Yeah, so it was 2020. It was the lockdown. Nobody was able to go to school. I was trying to teach remotely and had all this downtime because I wasn't traveling in, and
Yeah.
nobody knew how to do school remotely yet or anything like that. So we had some pretty low expectations and all that. So I think it was probably, I know this video came out in April. And so then in the next few weeks, I probably started to set some things. And then I thought, like everybody else, well, let's post them on LMD because that's where all the cool setters are and so forth. And just kind of injected myself into that community without asking or anything like that. And it didn't get, they didn't get well loved, and I didn't have the solution code right, and I posted like 5 puzzles in 2 days and got reprimanded for stuff like that. But eventually kind of learned how that all works, and slowed down and set or I decided, I'm gonna solve more puzzles
Mhm.
and I post, right, and tried to maintain at least 4 to 5 times more puzzle solving than setting. I thought that was a responsible thing to do, but anyway, I'm rambling.
No worries.
So June, I think, was when I first published
Yeah.
some things to LMD. And I think it was August when
Yeah, it was August, yeah.
I finally got something on there. I don't remember if I emailed them specifically about it. I must have, because they knew that I was a maths teacher and things like that. So I must have emailed them this puzzle and said something like, it doesn't have any givens. It doesn't even have any digits in the clues.
Yeah.
and I was really proud of the fact that it had no givens, it had no numbers anywhere in it, and it taught something. If I remember right, there was it was like a little teaser question I had
Yeah.
for it. Um, and I think it was what's the sum of all the numbers around the outside ring, if this is the case. And yeah, it was
This
that
one.
was that. So what is that,
Nice.
2 months maybe?
Yeah, 2 months. July, August. A little bit less, I think.
Found out what was causing the echo actually, and it's gone away completely now. So yay!
Awesome. Um, okay, so a bunch of things just came up. So first of all, first feature has a little teaser to teach you something. What do you think
Mhm.
about teasers these days? Like that's a very interesting idea that I don't see a lot of people doing.
I would love it. My all my rule sets and so forth are always kind of new ways to think about something and
Mhm.
to draw somebody in with a question like what if this rule existed, what would this have to be, and if
Right.
somebody could like get hooked that way and then be like, oh,
Mhm.
that wasn't so hard. Now maybe I can do a whole puzzle with that. I think it would be a great idea. uh, I, I'm, I hate how so many puzzles have like ridiculously challenging break-ins, and you have to do all this sort of work and think and blah 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 to try to even get a toehold into a puzzle.
Well,
I
it's
don't generally write puzzles like that. Almost every one of my
yeah,
puzzles, there's some, little thing to think about, and then you're in. And then there's
right.
another part that gets in, and so forth. And spoiler, if you want to do any one of my puzzles, almost every single one of them, the top line is the first thing you look at. So,
Right.
because that's how I set it. Like I think about whatever it is, and I almost always put that on the first line because that's where you're reading from left to right and top to bottom. So,
Right. I mean, there's a lot of puzzles. I specifically try to make puzzles where the first sort of move teaches you how to begin thinking about the rest of the puzzle. But I guess when you have
exactly.
this break-in idea, and you need sort of this whole grid to set up the break-in, putting a teaser or an example where they have to learn something before they get to the puzzle itself is a good way to sort of do that every time.
Exactly. So if there was like a 20 clue in the teaser, and you're like, okay, I know that. And then you have the real puzzle and the 20 clue is there, like in the same spot or something, or,
Right,
that would that would be a nice way to get people in. And if they can't do the teaser, then they don't waste time
right,
trying a bigger puzzle. I would love to see more of that sort of thing. So,
definitely. Um, So the other thing you talked about in just that 2 seconds is teachable moments. So what does that mean that you're teachable moments or teaching someone with Sudoku?
um,
I mean, you're a
no,
teacher, so
you would think that as a teacher, I would try to put more teachable moments in there. I don't really think about that, to be honest. So I mean, the bullseye is a great example of that because I had something I really wanted people to be able to think, what is the sum of the outside?
right,
But that's kind of rare. I don't generally have this thing that I want to teach. Not that good of a solver, so most of my solving strategies or ideas or something like that isn't aren't novel. So if there's something I found in somebody else's puzzle that I think is worth sharing, I suppose maybe I might make a puzzle that highlights that and so forth. But yeah,
so
I
if you
have
did,
taught.
yeah, go
Somebody
ahead.
asked, is it
Yeah,
Penguin? Just asked about if
that's
I've
Kodak
used
also.
puzzles. Um, oh, Kodak is
Yeah,
Penguin. Cool. Um, I have occasionally done some puzzle-like things for my algebra students, specifically um, factoring. When you
Yeah.
take something like x squared plus 8x plus 7 and have to factor that into x plus 7 and x plus 1. I have made some puzzles like that where you've got a multiplication written out there and then various parts of it are missing. So maybe you
Mhm.
know the final answer and you know that this is a 2x and this is a 3 and you need to try to figure out what all the different pieces are. And I found that that's been very successful. My students that generally factor quite well after having to think about it forwards and backwards and all that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
And they use that sort of table as their method of solving it. So yeah, I've had a few successes in teaching way of puzzles. A lot of times I just have puzzles available nearby for them to work on when they're done with a quiz or test or something. Lately, my algebra students have really enjoyed star battles.
Right.
So,
Those are
yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Easy Star Battle is so much fun.
exactly. So I find a lot of the crazy dad because he's got so many of them. So it's anyway.
So going back to joining LMD and it not being really a community that you sort of asked to be a part of, or like you didn't understand their norms or anything. Uh,
Mhm.
you were one of the first people, along with like Clover and people like that, who started using the CTC Discord for uh, setting puzzles, like sharing them, testing them, etc. I think you were like the 15th post in the puzzle submitting testing or
Wow.
something. Uh,
Okay.
so talk about the early games or early days of the CTC Discord. Was it a completely different atmosphere than say on LMD?
Well, there's definitely differences between OMD and Discord, or the CTC Discord. Um, I guess I didn't really notice that I was so early adopter. When I came into Discord, I have never had any Discord before, so I always call the CTC thing just
The
Discord. But
Discord.
now I realize that Discord is so much more, and there's
Yeah.
so many different servers that you can join. But um, so anyway, when I first went and did that, it was cool to see all the different puzzles that were out there, and eventually got my bearings as to what to do and where to go. And I think I ran into Eric Fox there and was just thrilled. Hey, thank you so much for your F puzzles. And I wrote him a tribute puzzle for his birthday once. And I was so shocked about how young he was, and he was able to program all that. So I kind of remember some of that, but I guess I just love the the fact that you could get immediate feedback and talk back and forth with people about a puzzle,
Yeah.
whereas in LMD you post it and maybe people will comment on it, um, but not. And then you would just wait and wait and wait and refresh, and maybe somebody solved it, and oh, maybe
Right.
somebody, ooh, I'm up to 8 solves now,
8 souls.
or something like that, right? And maybe this one will actually get a rating.
Yeah.
Um, most of those first puzzles did not get rated for a long time. I think until after I gained a little bit better setting and better puzzles, and then people went back and found some of my old ones and got them rated. But yeah, it was I love the server, and if I wasn't a part of that, I would definitely not still be setting today.
Right.
Um, to be able to try out so many ideas and help others and get help from others, and it's good. So I would definitely recommend, if any setter is not already on, that they need to. I would also encourage or discourage maybe so many people from setting on LMD. Um, I mean, it's great and so forth, but I think they've been flooded with so much now that I think they've probably, I don't know, maybe gotten disappointed or overwhelmed or something like that. That they're not their own little niche
Yeah.
community anymore. So I think so many people just immediately set things and post them to LMD like I did. And I'm like, no, no, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And some people will go straight to LMD and post their puzzle first, and also in the testing
Yeah. I was about to mention
thing
that.
at CTC. I'm like, so you're posting your puzzle and you haven't even gotten it tested yet? No, that's not a good idea. Um, you're gonna get yeah. So
So in the
anyhow,
early days, when we didn't have the Discord, when you didn't have the Discord, did you just post puzzles without sending them to anyone else after testing them yourself, obviously?
yeah, there were a couple I've posted to LMD, those early ones that had never been tested by anybody except for me,
Right.
and there was at least one where it had more than one solution. I didn't realize it, and then got called out. Oh, this has two solutions and so forth. And
Hmm.
thankfully, thankfully the mentors there were polite enough and so forth. But they could have really let me have it.
Yeah.
Why are you posting? Who are you? Why are you posting puzzles here that aren't even unique and everything like that?
Right.
So thank thankfully they were polite. And no hard feelings at all.
So speaking of the Discord, you often put constraint or puzzle ideas just straight into the puzzle setting channel on the CTC Discord. Why do you do that?
I guess I thought that was what the channel was for, was like inspiring people to set puzzles and so forth, and helping each other with
Hmm.
puzzles. And so an idea would come to my head, and I'd be like, well, maybe somebody needs some inspiration. Maybe somebody has, right, they want to set a puzzle, but they don't really know what to do. And so I would throw the ideas out there, and very rarely has anybody taken a RockyRoer idea and run with it, but
I've seen a few.
occasionally there's a few of them.
Yeah.
Usually it's me. Usually I end up
Yeah.
running with it after I post it. Most of the time I post those because I'm like, I really want to see a puzzle like this. I think that would be a fun rule set. And so um, I I could make it, but maybe somebody else can make it, or maybe it already exists. And there's
Right.
a large number of times when I've posted an idea out there and somebody else has been like, oh yeah, so and so did this a few years ago. And they dig it up on LMD and they post a link there. And I was like, yay, then I got the puzzle that I wanted
Yeah.
to do. Um,
Instant
and
reward.
so exactly. Lately, my ideas come so quickly and so often to me that I don't have time to do them all and create puzzles with them. And so I've been using it selfishly as
Yeah.
a repository of all these ideas. And so I will often, if I want to set a puzzle and something isn't in mind, I will literally search uh, in puzzle, or I'll search puzzle idea, and you know, 100
Yeah.
and some odd ideas come up there, and I'd be like, okay, I did that one, did that one, did that. Ooh, I never did that one. That sounds pretty cool. Let's try it. So
It's
a
funny
cat.
because uh, in the last interview with Clover, we were talking about some people will say they want some help with like a variant that they've built or a puzzle that they've started making, but they won't tell anyone what the puzzle's about, or they won't explain what the variant is. And she was talking about how cheap ideas are, and that your idea, like millions of people have ideas all the time, just like your idea is not worth anything. Just give it up. And it seems like you just understand that implicitly. You're just posting them in public. Like I have a notepad with puzzle ideas, but you're using the Discord as a notepad.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't. It's not my job to make puzzles. It's not like I'm giving away trade secrets or something
Right.
like that. But the biggest reason I make puzzles and the
Mhm.
biggest reason I post ideas in there is because I want to solve something like that.
Right.
And so if I were to keep that puzzle idea secret, then it's never gonna come up and I won't be able to solve it. Um, so that's why I often do that. I really hope people will take those ideas and create it. And yeah, some of them are really weird and out there. Um, Lately, I've been putting emoji reactions underneath them. The puzzle idea I threw out there today had like three nauseated faces next to it. It's like, okay, I guess that one's not a hit, but I wish I had been doing that from the very start. That would have probably saved me making some puzzles that ended up not being enjoyed. But um, well,
Speaking of Clover, she asked a question which is very much related to this. Uh, where do your ideas come from?
hmm,
I mean, obviously your head, but
um, well, like I said, from early on solving things, I've just
right.
always been intrigued by the slightly different type of puzzle, um, and I guess I don't know how these ideas come to me.
Hmm.
They do. Every video that I watch that CTC does, something's going to come to my head. Simon will say something like, "You can't put a zero here because," and I'd be like, "Well, why not? Why can't you put a zero there? What if you could? What if the rule allowed that?" I don't know for how many weeks there was the new Sven pad, and they had the ability to put zero in,
Hmm.
and I was like, somebody make a puzzle that can actually put zero in. Um, because he keeps mentioning it all the time, but there's no
Right.
actual reason to put a zero in. So, anyway, that's just one example of right. A comment said offbeat, and I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. I'm always perusing, like I probably read 90% of the puzzles on LMD. Just I'll scroll through the newest ones and see, oh, that's interesting, or that one, or something like that. And oh, what if we did that? That's kind of cool. Nope, nope. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. What if this happened? So I guess I just ask what if a lot, and as I'm driving, something will, I'll pass a sign, something will come
Yeah.
up. I went disc golfing earlier today, and just how could I put disc golf into a puzzle? Um, Somebody did actually. There's a
Oh,
there's a
really?
disc golf puzzle on OMD. I think I saw just a few weeks ago, but um,
Interesting.
so yeah, I don't know. They come to me more naturally, I think, than many people, which is the reason maybe that I throw them out there on Discord.
Hmm.
Um,
Um, so speaking of flipping through LMD, looking for something, Targanis asked, when looking for puzzles to solve, what factors stand out to you?
well, I can't turn down a sandwich puzzle that has no givens in it. So
Okay.
if I ever see something like that, I'm gonna hop on it. Um, the the no given digits, no numbers at all is really intriguing to me. So
Hmm.
I will definitely take a closer look at a grid that has no numbers in it. Um, a but I guess the biggest thing is if there's anything kind of novel
Yeah.
and it's not shrouded in lots of other rules,
Hmm.
I'll probably hop on it. I don't like puzzles that are messy and just have all sorts of different things in there.
Right.
Um, I just uh, it's too chaotic for me, and so that those I'll swipe by pretty quickly. I like a nice clean grid.
So when I showed you the backdrop for this stream to see how you liked it, you said, Oh, yay, there are hardly any numbers anywhere here. I like that. And you said that's sort of become
Yes.
your style. Why is that? I mean, is it just you like that aesthetically, or
Um, I don't know. I mean, the puzzle of the year that Fistamafel has, that had a nice empty grid. There were numbers on the outside, but I was okay with that because I mean, you kind of have to have um, most of the time numbers on the outside for sandwich clues or something. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It looked good, and when I could when I could make a puzzle and it didn't need a given, or when I could make a puzzle and it didn't even need a digit at all, which was the bullseye one, the first one I actually sent into CTC. I
Mhm.
just it was like this extra level of pride, and so you know they say that a lot in the videos and in their um, taglines or whatever they're called. You know, the Sudoku with no given digits. I don't know.
That
It
that
sucks me
title
in.
has been
So
used, I
thousands of
think,
times.
I think like at least 15 times. I was trying to count it earlier today, but it's at least 15 times.
Hmm.
Some variation of it.
So,
Uh, how do you come up with your puzzle titles?
I don't really think about it too much, to be honest. My most recent puzzle was a sandwich where the crusts were kind of a unique thing, and I literally couldn't think of any title. But in my head, as I was writing these things down, I was just saying crusties all the time, and it just stuck. So sometimes a puzzle uh, lends itself to a name. A lot of times it's just literally what the puzzle's about. um, sandwich, property sandwich or something, because that's what the two constraints were. Um, I mean, I generally would like to know from a title about what the puzzle is kind of like.
Right.
Um, so if the puzzle's title is just really weird, and I have to click on it to see what it is, you know, it's a bit annoying in my book, but
Fair enough.
so yeah,
Uh,
all those titles are pretty much what the puzzle is.
yeah, pretty much.
So mhm.
One of your CTC features had the title replaced by "There's a spoiler in the title." What do
Yeah,
you think
that
of
was
that decision?
well, I actually um I posted it that way. I called it spoilers in title and hid the title in there, and then so if anybody wanted to look at the title, they could see it and then maybe have a little bit of a hint.
Ah, I
The
see.
title um the title itself was 12 Days of Christmas or something like that, and the idea behind the song, you know, is that you sing on the first day of Christmas, there's one gift, and the second
Mhm.
day you have two gifts and then one gift, and then on the third day it's three gifts and two gifts and one gift, and that's how the puzzle was solved. Each of the cages didn't have totals, but there was a one cell cage that had a one in it, and a two cell cage that had a two and a one in it, and a three
Mhm.
cell that had a three and a two and a one in it, and so forth. And I think if I remember right, all I did was say that the total of all the cages was certain amount, certain number. And that was it. And I went for that shock factor. Like, what? There's no numbers, and all you're telling me is that the total of all these things is this? How am I supposed to do that? In fact, just recently there was a really popular Little Killers one with that idea. I don't remember who posted it, but it was 178, I think. All the Little Killers
Yeah,
added up to 178, and so it was a lot like that, only
Clipperl did. Yeah, Clipperl.
with cages instead. So yeah, that was a fun puzzle.
Uh,
Once you get past that, um, you know, how in the world can you do this? Puzzle is actually ridiculously easy. If I
right,
remember right, it was like a one or two star if you knew that the cages were that.
right.
But figuring that out made it more challenging. So yeah, that's a fun puzzle. I like that one.
Do you prefer also that sort of shock factor of like, how could this be real? Like, is that something you're looking
Yeah.
for?
I enjoy that sort of thing. I mean, that comes with not having any digits, I think, or even numbers in the clues.
Hmm.
If somebody can look at a puzzle of mine and be like, "How in the world does that even solvable?"
Right.
and then they actually do kind of see that it's solvable and it's not even hard. Um, I would love that. So yeah, I definitely strive for that in puzzles if I can. Um, some rule sets allow that more easily than others, but
So speaking of which kind of rule sets you do, Turgenis asks, well, I guess I just asked a Turgenis question, but I guess I'll ask this one too. Do you tend to pick up a rule set and then craft setups around it, or do you have a deduction style in mind and then pick the rule set that facilitates it?
the rule set definitely um, drives the puzzle. So I seldom just have a deduction that I want to have happen and make that the case. Because everything's always a novel rule for me. So my if I get some idea,
Hmm.
the first thing I do is I look for the extreme.
Right.
For instance, in a killer cage, if you've got a 9 cell, it's got to be 45. Or if a
Hmm.
sandwich classic has to be 35, it's the biggest clue you can get. And so for any rule set, the first thing I'm going to do is what's the biggest and or smallest clue that's possible.
Right.
And sometimes I'll put that in there if it's a novel enough thing that somebody else ought to think that same thing too, and then realize, oh, this is the biggest. Okay, and so then they're in. Um, Usually, what I'll do is then find what's the next biggest thing, or what's the biggest thing that has two possibilities.
Hmm. Right.
And as soon as I know what that is, I'll put that in. So then people are like, okay, well, it could be this or it could be that. And then I'll put another clue in that disambiguates which one of those it is. Um, and at that point, you've got your puzzle going, right? And you just keep adding clues until it either solves or you find that you broke it because your clue makes this earlier thing impossible, and then you start all over again. But that's kind of the thought that goes through my head. And I always just explore the rule set, right? What is this? If this was a rule, what are the sorts of things that would come?
Right.
It reminds me a lot of I'm a math teacher here, so I'm going to use a math metaphor, but
Yeah.
the imaginary number system.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, the rule is that you can't take square roots of negative numbers, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then mathematicians were like, well, what if you could? What would happen if you could? What sort of properties would this thing have? And they kind of imagined up this concept. And for a long time, it was just fun and games. But then somebody said, "Well, this solves this equation, and this is and you can use them to do this, and you can model 2D motion with the complex plane, and and all these applications came from
Hmm.
it. But it started with just a what if? What if you could do this? And so that's how I do it. What if this was the rule? What sort of implications would that have? How do I use that? And I think most of the fun puzzles that I've made, and actually I think most of the fun puzzles that other setters have made have really just been discoveries that they've made when they've been playing around with it.
Right.
Um, I laugh sometimes because Simon, when he solves puzzles, will always comment on how ingenious the setter was and how amazingly planned, and how much foresight and thought they must have put into some of these. And there are certainly times when a setter probably has done that. I wouldn't be surprised if many of those amazing things are just something that the setter discovered as they were doing something, and they're like, "That's really cool. I'm gonna leave that."
I
I
mean,
know that's me. I know
my
I don't have all amazing foresight and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
I just found something, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's cool. I'm leaving it in there." I wonder how many of the Fistamafel puzzles that are out there. He was just like, "Well, this is kind of cool. I'm gonna leave it in there." Um,
Yeah,
anyway.
how Simon says, imagine just waking up in the morning and thinking, oh, well, if I were to do this, then this would happen, and then I would know this, and then I could do this with that. But it's like, it's more like, huh, if I did this, then maybe that would be interesting. And then you put it into the grid and you're like, oh, this happens, and then this could also happen. So it's not like that
Exactly.
at all. It's just kind of like, well, if I do this weird thing, maybe something interesting will happen. And then something interesting does happen sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, and you just put it down.
Uh, and the dozens of times when nothing interesting happens and you've tried something else, nobody sees that.
Yeah.
So they only see the one that you left in there, and therefore they think you're a genius
Or the 80
because
times you
it's
broke
in
the
there.
thing that was cool.
Exactly. And the hundreds of puzzles in here that just have a big X in them because they broke, and it's like, nope, that that didn't work.
Uh, I see you pick up that notebook, and this relates to a question Jovial asked. She said, I may be mistaken, but I recall at one point you said that you typically set with pencil and paper. Is that true?
Yeah, it's definitely true. So I prefer to solve on paper and pencil too, generally. I I mean, I'm a teacher and I'm in front of a computer all day
Hmm.
long, projecting things and all that sort of stuff. And I love to not have screen time. So I love to be
Right.
able to get home and sit down and not stare at something. But I do like doing a puzzle. I love the feel of paper and pencil and erasing. Um, and so I prefer to solve and set on paper. Um,
Hmm.
and I would recommend and encourage people to set on paper too. I mean, F puzzles um, for all of its pluses and so forth. I think it's caused people to set puzzles sometimes that they just throw ideas or constraints into the grid and hit solve and all that sort of
Right.
stuff. And I don't know that that's always um, well, I know that doesn't make for great puzzles because I used to do that some of myself too. And so to start on a piece of paper, something empty, just add a number, and then try to solve it as much as you possibly can,
Or
and
don't add any
then
numbers ever because they're bad.
yeah, but um, so anyway, you set a clue
Yeah.
or whatever that might be, number or box or a dot,
Yeah.
and you solve as much as you possibly can, and then when you get stuck, you just add something, and then you keep going. And so I much prefer setting puzzles over solving them
Yeah.
because I can add the rule whenever I want, right? And so I don't have to try to discover what somebody else has done before. I can just steer it and be like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool if this was extreme here, so let's make it extreme, and then I can keep going and so forth. And um, yeah, so anyway, I definitely set on paper almost exclusively first. I
Right.
don't always finish something on paper, um, because eventually, you get to that halfway through the grid idea, and it needs to finish, and every clue that you're adding is breaking it, and every other clue that
Right.
you're adding is breaking it, and so forth, and so usually if I get to that point and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good puzzle, I just need to finish it. Usually at that point, I will get into F puzzles, and I will set whatever clues I can, if possible, with cosmetics or something, and I'll use all the what's it called? The littles.
Given
Use
pencil marks?
use something as use pencil marks as
Yeah.
givens, and I will hit the solution path and just see, is it already broken?
Right.
Is there anything that is forced that I didn't see? Like this, oh, that actually has to be a 7. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let me not try to make it something different then.
Yeah.
um, and I can use that to help steer those last couple clues. um, but yeah, all my puzzles for the most part start on paper.
So do you have like a notebook with like blank Sudoku grids, or is it just lined paper?
Um, I've got
Oh God.
yeah, exactly. I've got a 6-pack of these.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is
Graph
um,
paper.
it's graph paper. There's I wish I had the link. I should have thought ahead and found that on Amazon. But it was just a nice 6-pack of 200 pages of graph paper, I think. And I've learned, at least with this size, that a 9 by 9, I use 2 squares
Yeah.
per square, and there's a border on the top and a border on the bottom, so I can draw up a 3 by 3 grid instantly without really counting squares anymore, because I've done it so many times. And it's just big enough to have outside clues all the way around the outside, so maybe that's why I enjoy things like X sums and sandwiches, because
You gotta use the extra
the paper
space.
lends itself, yeah, it lends itself to that well. I enjoy shading, and when I'm solving a sandwich puzzle, I'll shade the things that aren't, and then I'll draw little clouds around the crusts once I
Right.
know that they have to be something. I also I when I solve a puzzle on paper, I can do something that I can't do in a solver, and that is might call it bifurcating a little bit. I don't know, but like I'll put a 1 9, and then I know that this is the opposite, so I'll write 9 1. And down here,
Right.
1 9, and I know this has to be the other one, and it's 9 1. And
Mm.
so it's I think people can kind of do that
With
in the
coloring,
CTC
maybe?
solver by coloring.
Right.
Yeah. But I can do it easily without thinking, any pairs like that. So this is a 3 2, this is a 2 3,
Right.
and so I do that on a regular basis. And
Hmm.
I realize that some of my puzzles have stuff like that, and then when people try to solve it online, that's not as easy.
Yeah.
Where it's like that's just an obvious deduction for me. You can't have a this because this is the 1 9, and in this other part of the box is the 9 1, so you can't have something else anywhere else. Um,
Yeah,
but
I can see why you would just naturally switch the order because you know that's true. So why wouldn't you just write it down? Whereas coloring, you sort of have to do this extra step, but you just do that while you're
yeah.
doing the other things.
Mhm.
Interesting.
I guess this looks like Penpa can do that, but I can't work with Penpa. I've tried so many times and it just doesn't work. I'm sorry. Who was it that made that?
Swaroop.
Swaroop, I think.
Well,
Uh,
Swaroop
I,
develops it now. I'm not sure if he made it.
I can't get into Penpa. It's been such a struggle, and I lose myself in the things that I do like. That if you have just a couple of modes that you can like tab those, and then
Yeah,
you can just hit tab through there. That's kind of a fun Penpa feature. But
that is the
um,
best feature, hands down, that they added.
yeah,
I use that
but
every time I use Nova.
I struggle with that, unfortunately. But different tools for different people, right? So I'm what I haven't done yet. I think somebody may have asked this or whatnot. Is I don't have I have only the vanilla version of F puzzles. I don't have any of the extensions or Ranks's solver that has true candidates built
Yeah,
into it or any of that sort of stuff. Um, I don't know. I mean, I seem to be able to set puzzles without it, but every once in a while, that true candidates feature seems kind of intriguing and interesting. And I wonder how many of my puzzles I could have finished earlier if I had known that that was there, and realized, oh, if you just make this a 3, the whole puzzle collapses. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
so,
that's definitely a good part of it. That's probably
but oh well.
the
I don't
solution
generally,
telling. Yeah.
I don't generally care about being as minimal as possible. I don't generally care that my solutions have to be exactly in a specific order.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I don't mind if you make a deduction here, and I thought it needed to be, that this one was what I came up with first. I kind of enjoy puzzles where there's multiple ways to make some progress, and so that also comes with setting it in paper.
Hmm.
There's times when I add more clues than I need to because I didn't I didn't realize that this was already fixed or something like that. But
Right. I mean that relates to the question that you you responded to in the channel. Doomdiat said, "What does your process look like for testing your own puzzles? Do you spend time trying to find an alternative solution path or bypasses, or do you primarily just make sure your intended path is logically sound?"
I don't generally care about finding alternative solve paths. So I certainly don't try to solve it a different way.
Right.
As long as I have a path that's relatively smooth and so forth. Cool. Is there a puzzle or two of mine that maybe what I how I solved it isn't how somebody else solved it? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, as long as people are solving it and having fun, who cares? So, um, I mean, I get that there are certain moments that you really want a
Hmm.
person to go to or something, but that's not me. I don't really care. I just want somebody to have the same fun with the rule set that I had. So if I, yeah. So anyway, usually I'll solve it, or I'll set the puzzle, sum it on paper, then go to F puzzles and kind of wrap it up. And then I will definitely do a full run through on paper. Um, Usually 2 or 3 days later. Um, I'm blessed with a horrible memory, so inevitably I will have forgotten what sort of whatever's I made, and so I'll go back and or somebody will find an old puzzle of mine and ask me how I did this, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember what it was. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Sometimes I'll have actually written a full solution document so that I can remember, but so it's really nice to be able to just test your own puzzles pretty open-mindedly.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, if it survives the run through on paper afterward, then I'll post it in the Discord channel for testing and get at least 2 more eyes on it,
Hmm.
and hopefully some feedback. And if people like it, post it on LMD perhaps. If people are just or whatever, then oh well. It was fun.
Yeah.
I've probably got, I don't know, 200 puzzles, I'm guessing, in the testing channel that went through there, and I certainly don't post all those. Um, I think Glum Hippo keeps saying, "Why don't you publish all these puzzles I've solved?" I'm like, because LMD's already got a ton of. They don't
Yeah.
need any more puzzles, um, and I suppose I could archive them in Discord server, but I don't see the point sometimes. So,
They
um,
just sort of go into a vacuum in there, I think.
yeah. So it's not like they have a lack of puzzles either. Are they
No.
up to 10,000 now, or they got to be close to it? But
I think it's only 7,000, maybe.
7,000. Okay. It's been a while since I've archived something, so I couldn't remember what their count is up to now, but 170 postings on in testing submissions. Wow. Yeah, that feels about right. So, um,
Less than
do try to at
50%
least,
success rate?
um, well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll just be like, this puzzle's just too weird. I don't think it's gonna. I don't think people are gonna like it, and so I end up not posting it. So, um, I could easily post many more on LMD if I was a little less bashful, I suppose. But yeah, whatever.
Uh, Ben's brings up a good point. You have 10 other puzzles. I'm guessing that means you've set non-Sudoku before?
I've said a few. I like occasionally a good pentominoes puzzle
Yeah.
or star battle, and so I've made a few variations of that. For instance, there's a skyscraper pentominoes puzzle I think I made once that so the clues on the outside are skyscraper clues, and the height of the pentomino I think is it's like how wide it is or how tall it is or something like
Oh,
that. So
interesting.
um so yeah, again, not your normal pentominoes puzzle, but
No.
what if it was a skyscraper clue? How would that work? Um, and so occasionally I'll come across an idea like that. I don't I don't solve a lot of non-Sudoku puzzles. Uh, I should. I like them. I guess it's kind of fun to read in the Discord. Gasp, or what are the gap
Gap?
puzzles?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to see those. I definitely read each puzzle each time, and I'll do a lot of those. Probably half of the puzzles in the gap puzzle I'll do online, but I generally don't like wasting time on my phone
Hmm.
or something like that. So I think that's why I don't do them. If they came on paper. If they came on paper, I'd probably jump on them a lot more quickly. But it is fun to see all those different variations, and
Right.
I definitely a lot of my ideas came from that. Right, I just see the latest thing that Eric came up with, and be like, well, what if that was a Sudoku? Or what if the numbers were in here? What if you added up totals here and so forth?
Right.
So. Um, I definitely enjoy a good Sudoku pencil puzzle variant. Um,
Hybrid, yeah.
like watching those.
So when you go to set non-Sudoku, do you have you ever set like just a standard Narakabi or something like that, or do you always go for like a variation of it?
I've set very few non-Sudoku puzzles. So
Hmm. Yeah, maybe
I made a
10.
few for the Christmas
Oh yeah.
um, Secret Santa idea, because I made a whole music themed puzzle pack um, for Official Band Kid. Um, and it turned out that Official Band Kid wasn't actually a band
Oh
nerd.
no.
I took a gamble that maybe they really loved music, um, and made this puzzle set for them.
Oh, band is in rubber
And
band.
they had they did play music a little bit, but
Oh,
not
okay.
since middle school. Um, anyways, so I made a couple of those, but those were all variations on things. Like it was a star battle, but it wasn't. Um, one star, there were sharps and flats, and so they interacted. You couldn't have, there was either a sharps row or a flats row. You couldn't have both in the same one. So even that
Cool.
was a variation. Um, Somebody want to know what my show was? This is
Oh,
and God said something, and there was light. So yeah.
you turned off your
Oh, I
video
disappeared.
by
What
doing that.
happened? I didn't.
I don't know.
I, I didn't do that.
Oh,
I hope my internet's not dying out on me. So
oh,
I'm
there you go.
back. So
I don't know what happened.
says, and God said blank, and there was light.
Oh, math
Uh,
integrals? Or
yeah,
are
I
those
think
Maxwell's
I'm pretty
equations?
sure they're Maxwell's equations.
Yeah,
So
okay, yeah, they are.
I
It was a little bit broken up. I thought that was just an epsilon, but yeah, those are definitely Maxwell's equations.
studied them a long time ago in undergrad. I got math major, physics minor, and a programming minor. So I must have done this at one point, but I do not remember double integrals and rings around them and an upside down triangle. I don't remember what that is. So
Just means it's a
pre-calc.
closed path.
Okay, pre-calc doesn't go in there. So, and now as soon as you said closed path, this is my brain. I just immediately thought of some sort of loop in a puzzle, and how could I make that happen? So that's how random the ideas can
Yeah.
pop into my head. The same thing will happen with songs. I'll just get song lyrics, just or something like that. I constantly have a song in my head, and I don't know where it comes from. They just pop in there. So,
Huh. Interesting.
where did you go? I want to see the stream again. Is this it? There it is. Okay.
What would you say is your most Rocky Rowery puzzle that you've made? What encapsulates your setting style most? Which puzzle? You can pick a few if you want.
I don't know. Bullseye is a good RockyRoerism with no numbers in it and all that sort of stuff. A decent number of the sandwich puzzles that I've written are also kind of classic RockyRoer. The Renban. I think Renban's sandwiches might still be at 100% on Logic Masters, but that one has no numbers and it's got clues outside the grid and it's a sandwich. I mean, that's kind of a RockyRoer one. And if you're thinking, how can what is it like? And the some of the sandwich capsules ones are the X sums, hidden X sums or something like that, where all you get is a couple of circles in the grid, and that's a 2-digit number that represents a sum. So hidden X sums, yeah, the second one down there. That's a pretty normal RockyRoer puzzle, I think, too. You look at that and you're like, well, there's no numbers in here. But then there's these circles, and those circles mean something. It's a 2-digit number. There's tens and there's ones digits, and so so those are the ones that I would love to see. I'd love to see more of, so that I can solve them myself. Remember, somebody else has made one like this, a hidden X sums. There's probably a link to it down in the if you scroll down a little bit in the comments. I bet they.
This one.
Yeah, exactly. Colot has also made a sandwich version of this and something else, and so yeah, I've loved those, and that might be the biggest thing to me. If somebody, and it's happened a few times, where somebody has used one of my rule sets and made their own puzzles and so forth, it makes me feel good, and of course I enjoy it, and that's why I made the puzzle myself, is because I liked that rule set, and so if I get to see somebody else's take on it, that's kind of fun. I don't know that the question, I don't think it was a question that was asked, but it's something I did want to speak of. Who's my who's my biggest
inspiration?
Inspiration, yeah. Who do I want to be if I grow up?
Henry Coleman? Or Fist and
no, actually,
a sandwich maker. Richard Stahl?
So, Richard Stahl is definitely my biggest inspiration in puzzle setting. He's got 400, I think, in his SVS series, which is a different Sudoku variant every week for however long and they're all approachable. They're all you learn something about the rule set when you're doing it. I've definitely loved all of his puzzles, and if I could grow up to be like him, I'm probably older than him. I don't know. But if I could have that reputation, that would be really cool. So
did you say there's over 500 and it's every week, right?
I don't know the exact count. I bet it's close to 400 of just specifically his Sudoku variant series as SVS puzzles. Um, and those are, yeah, pretty much every week. Like I think they come out on, I think he has them published on Tuesdays maybe or something at midnight. They just come and it's like, oh look, another Richard puzzle, and they're always 90%, 95%,
Yeah.
98% solved by 60, 70 people. I'm like, wow,
I
that's
never
pretty good.
considered the number of them, but I just did the calculation real quick, and I think he's been publishing those for over 7 years then. If it's 400, like that's insane. And 500 would be
Yep.
9 years.
Yeah,
Almost
and
10. Almost 10 years.
he's got a bunch of other puzzles that aren't
Yeah.
Sudoku either. My One of my favorites he does that inspired me to make a puzzle actually was I can't quite remember it. It was like a battleship sort of thing. So there were
Hmm.
pieces that you had to put in there, and then the spaces that weren't filled with shapes, you had a loop to draw through, and then off to the
Right.
side there were sums, like the numbers that were in there in
Yeah.
order, something added up. Can't
Japanese some
quite
Sudoku
remember all
or
of the
whatever.
rules stuff. I love Japanese sums. Those are also great puzzles.
Yeah.
Um, that's not what I was talking about, but yeah, Panthera's puzzles are so fun, and how she can make the different shapes come up. The different pictures come up all the time is so cool. But I made a stepping stones puzzle that had kind of a similar rule set, but was just for Sudoku, and so I I emulated him because he's so inspiring to me. And so if anybody were ever to emulate one of my puzzles, I think I would feel, I already have a few times felt that, yay, I've made it. Somebody liked one of my puzzles enough that they made their own version of it.
Right. I mean, that's what I said in response to when Clover was talking about how cheap ideas are. Like, they're so cheap that I am so glad when someone takes my idea and does something with it because it's saying this idea is valuable to me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, some of Clover's earliest puzzles that she posted on LMD inspired some of mine. She had some negative numbers in a rule set well before doublers or
Yeah.
negatives have become popular in recent, like in the last week or two, or month, I guess. But yeah, so I made a puzzle with um, doubling and a half. I think that might be my first LMD puzzle that I actually posted. Actually,
The
thinking
triangle?
about. Okay, it wasn't that one then. Something and a half, or double and a half, and so there were half digits and
Oh,
um,
negative and a
stuff.
half.
Yeah, so it had negative numbers in it and a half, and I kind of think that when I solved Clovers, it may have inspired this, or the other way around, or I don't know. But anyway, it's definitely fun to see other
So,
people's work. And oh
yeah,
gosh, that looks so ugly.
I'll take it away.
Oh
I'll take it away.
no, no, leave it. But oh my gosh, yeah, that's the sort of horrible tools that I had to work with. Um, so those are supposed to be killer cages, but I didn't know how to
Oh, no.
draw borders on there on top of it. I think at some point I took a screenshot of something in Excel and then put that into PowerPoint and added transparent cages on top
Right?
of it to try to make it look good. Um, wow. The only puzzle of mine that's even uglier than that is visible by 11 or something like that. If you bring that one up, it's so awful. Um, yeah,
Oh,
that
it's
one.
very long. Oh,
The
yes. I
rule
remember
setter.
you showing me this one before. Oh, this one's so bad.
It probably has two solves or something awful. It has sandwich clues
Five
and
souls.
ambiguous little killers, and then these all sorts of overlapping cages. Actually, I kind of think that the divisible by 11 rule is something probably could make a good puzzle, because how you can test for divisibility is if you add up
Yeah.
every like add, subtract, and if that equals 0. I mean, I think there's good theory behind that could make for a fun puzzle, but
Mhm.
I butchered it and made an awful looking puzzle. And but this was me trying to teach something, right?
Yeah.
I knew this divisible by 11 trick and I wanted to teach it, and this lesson crashed. So
Right. I was gonna ask,
um,
because we're talking about different setters and getting inspiration for them. Have you ever done a collaborative setting with someone, another setter?
I have not actually ever set really with somebody. I mean, occasionally I'll get a puzzle. Somebody sends me and says, "Hey, can so I'll add a hint or something like that." But no, I haven't actually sat down with somebody live and tried to set it. I think primarily what turns me off maybe about that is just it's online. I
Yeah.
do most of my setting on paper, and it's going to be a little bit hard to connect with somebody over a sheet of paper. It could be done, but um, I think that's maybe the biggest reason why I haven't done it. Um, but I know that works well for a lot of people, and the idea is intriguing. And so if somebody saw a RockyRoer puzzle idea and was like, "Yeah, I might set that. You want to help me set it?" Yeah, I probably would attempt that. It'd be kind of
Hmm.
fun, I think. But um,
If you if you were able to set with someone but also using paper, would you do that?
um, I would guess that if I were to set some with somebody, that I'd probably start with a few things on paper, and or maybe if something happened, I could put that on F puzzles, as a cosmetic cage. At this point now, for the most part, you can draw what you might have as a clue,
Hmm.
unless you have something really weird like some of Stefan Burra's weird Kropke arrows or something like
Yeah.
that are in there. That you probably need Penfa for. But what would be really kind of nice would be my students use Google Docs all the time, and they can have several people working on a document at the same time. Um, if that was possible, if there was a Sudoku,
Google Docs. Yeah.
Google Doku,
Google
um,
Doku. Yeah.
Google
Someone should get on
Doku,
that.
where you could literally have multiple people on it. I think it would be kind of fun to solve that way too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Especially if it was a big puzzle like a samurai or something like that, and so
Yeah.
somebody else is working in this section and somebody else is in this section, and you're collaboratively solving on that. That might be
And then you get
a fun
together and it's
thing. So
broken and you fight over who
yeah,
broke
and
it.
you put that 7 in there. So yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So maybe Ranks, or one of the many people we have with programming experience, can come up with um, some sort of some sort of tool that makes that happen. Um, so Sven's working on that idea right now. Cool. So
Um,
oh, I scrolled and there's all these things that people have been talking about. I
yeah.
just noticed that. I have not been up to date with the chat. Okay.
No worries. Um, Bremster asked, how wide is your bench of setters? Do you use the same few people who know your style over and over before public testing, or do you mix it up?
Yeah, I remember seeing that question and saying that my answer was going to be disappointing.
Oh, okay.
Um,
You don't have a bunch of setters?
I don't have a bench
I
of
don't have a
setters,
bench
so
either.
I set my puzzles. I always solve them No, I didn't always used to, but now I always do after posting a couple of broken puzzles, and getting embarrassed about that. I always run through my own puzzles first. Um, and then there's usually people that are going to solve puzzles. I'm always I'll post one in testing and then make sure I solve two, or something like that. And so I think there's enough people that are in the Discord looking at the testing puzzles that it doesn't usually take too long for a puzzle to get another test or two. And if something isn't for whatever reason, I do have enough contacts with other people that have been like, oh, this guy solved this puzzle. It's kind of like this, so maybe he'll like this rule set. Just probably doesn't know it, and so I'll DM them and say, hey, you think you could try this one?
Hmm.
But I definitely don't. I don't have a bank of testers that I just like here. Try this one. That's definitely not true. Um,
Brimster
because
living in
I'm
the
a
life of luxury with his bench of setters.
Yeah, because my because I'm such a relatively bad solver, if I can make it through one of my puzzles, it's probably good. I generally just do it as a backup to um, uh, make sure that I didn't miss something or screw something up or assume something wrong. And more than anything, I just want feelers for did they like it?
Right.
Is this fun? Is this worth publishing?
Hmm.
And so when somebody solves it and they check the box and they don't like
Say
say
anything, yeah.
anything about that puzzle, and then it's like, okay, like I posted one about a week ago and it got 10 solves within 2 hours, which is pretty rare for my
Yeah.
puzzles. But nobody said anything about it. And I'm like, okay, that was meh. It's just not going to get published because if nobody's even like, wow, or that was great, or so I'm like, yeah, it's just going to sit in testing and never see the light of day again.
Well, it's very frustrating. I
No,
know you didn't publish the McNugget numbers.
no, I can't remember what happened with that puzzle. I think it was broken, if I remember right,
Oh,
and didn't actually solve completely or whatnot. But that's a really weird idea. Even I thought that was weird, and I'm a math guy and love it. So I needed a given. Was that why I threw that one out because of it? That might have been. So
what was I gonna say? Oh, right. It's very not it's very annoying when 10 people solve your puzzle or 9 people, whatever, and then you you ask them, "Oh, what do you think?" And then, "Oh, it was great. Like I loved it so like please say something to me so I know, right?"
yeah, so I try to comment on every puzzle I solve. I not always. Oh. I want to be respectful. There are some puzzles when I'm like, I think you can do better. Um, I know you're a great setter, and this was not your best work, or something like that.
Do you tell people
I've,
that straight up?
I think I've said that a few times and be like,
Yeah.
You're this isn't your best work. You can make this one better, or this is too busy, or something." And hopefully, I don't come across as rude. I don't mean to. I just try to offer accurate feedback. Um,
I think people
and
appreciate that.
yeah, so and I hope
Um,
somebody will say that to me at some point too, and not be like, "Yeah, this is not your best idea, Rocky," or "Yeah, that's a good one. You should publish it." Those sorts of comments would be really helpful
yeah.
because otherwise, I'm just kind of left in this. Is it worthy? And I definitely have some self-esteem things, feel like a fraud at times, right? I shouldn't, but I do constantly. Is it good enough? Have I really made it as a setter? I mean, I have those doubts constantly, even as a teacher or as a dad. right? Am I actually being the best dad I could be or the best teacher I could be? I seldom feel that way. So, yeah, anytime somebody can say that's good, publish it, Rocky, that would be really helpful for me. But
Yeah, definitely. I think we all get that sort of feeling in this community, especially. It's sort of a prone to imposter syndrome community, kind of like
exactly.
academia or whatever like that.
Mhm.
So many people who are very smart, and it's easy to feel like you're not one of those people.
Exactly. And even if I'll get a puzzle and eventually it gets rated and it's a 98 or 99 or 100 even percent sometimes. Um, Even when I have one of those 100 puzzles, I'm like, well, only 11 people solved it. And if enough people actually solved it and realized how crappy a puzzle it was, it would go down. But the first 11 people to solve a puzzle, they've invested some time in it. They really love it. And so, of course, they're going to say, very nice. But if I had 50 people solve it, and then it would actually come down to whatever realistic numbers. I mean, even stupid doubts like that go through my head all the time. Um, so yeah, get it. I don't like feeling like an imposter any better than anybody else, but I definitely do.
So related to feeling like crap, what's your biggest puzzling regret? Is there any puzzle you would have liked to redo or take back?
Divisible by 11.
Well, that
um,
one.
yeah, I mean, maybe. I just I made that puzzle so messy. Um, but I don't know. I don't have too many big regrets, I don't think. I probably could have thought a little bit more before jumping on the LMD bandwagon and so forth. But I don't know that hope I don't have a rude taste in anybody's mouth on that website. So may have upset some people at first because of my um, impatience to just post puzzles all the time.
Mhm.
But I've learned and grown from there. So um, yeah, so kind
Yeah.
of happy. I think I spend too much time doing Sudoku, so I might 10 years from now look back and regret spending so much time with my head
Yeah.
in a book or a pad or something and ignoring kids growing up maybe or something like that. But um, yeah, I think you're always going to have probably something you look back on and be like, oh, I wish I could have done that or I shouldn't have done that. But
Yeah. Definitely important to take time for yourself as well. So,
mhm.
um, Tall Cat asked, "Do you think being a teacher has shaped the way you approach setting Sudoku for puzzles?"
Yeah, certainly. Being a math teacher specifically definitely has because of just being in love with math and uh, growing up in with that and always being trying to figure out ways to use math in a different way or look at a trig in a different light or something like that. That definitely does. I wish I would do more of using puzzling in my classroom.
Hmm.
Um, I don't probably primarily because there's so much stuff you gotta get through in a
Yeah.
year, right? The Algebra 2 curriculum is so full. There's like no extra days. Praying for no snow days because if there's a snow day, then I'm not going to be able to get to the whatever. And so to try to also implement puzzling into all that is hard. But
Yeah.
um, so yeah, it might be nice to do more of that. But I definitely have that idea of trying to make an idea available to people and or to uh, make them think about it in a long way. And so yeah, it's definitely played a part.
Hmm.
Looking back at any questions there.
Um,
Vario. Navario's writing a puzzle right now because of
Yeah.
something he said. Cool. I hope to see it. So,
Um, do you usually submit your own puzzles to CTC for features, or just let other people do that for you?
I don't send many puzzles to them anymore. Uh, and I would love to see some more puzzles. It's been a couple months, I think, since I've had a video on there.
Hmm.
And at first, like when Bullseye came out, I was so amazed and proud and
Yeah.
excited, and I shared it with everybody, and they all watched and they saw RockyRoer, the American maths teacher, and my family's been mocking me about that ever since, and in a happy, good way. And so, it was fun. And then I was like, oh, I want it again, I want it again, I want it again. Um, at this point, I'm like, I mean, I would love it. It'd be fun. It's always fun to watch somebody do your puzzle and
Yeah.
get excited. I mean, who can't appreciate Simon's excitement um, for a puzzle? It's uh,
Exactly.
it's thrilling. But I guess I haven't sent them very much anymore because I've had my turn, and so it'd be nice if other setters can see that too. Um, if they wanted to do one of my puzzles, great. Krusty's is a great puzzle. I'd really love it
Yeah.
if they did that one. It's kind of fun. But it's fine. So I
Do
don't.
you
I guess I
like?
don't need the glory. More than anything, I just enjoy doing the puzzles, and I make puzzles because I want to solve them. um, uh, it's selfish, but I've gone back and solved many of my puzzles because the rule set was fun, and I was like, hey, I want to do it, and I have a horrible memory, so I don't remember the solve paths. So
Hey,
I'll
this
go back
Rocky
and do it.
Roa
Oh
guy's pretty
yeah, that was
good.
kind of fun. Yeah. So I wonder if when I get old someday, I'm gonna tell myself jokes or something like that and laugh at my own jokes because I forgot the punchlines or something dumb.
Um,
But
Clover said that she would set puzzles even if she was the last person on Earth. Are you a similar way? You don't care about the
absolutely.
audience?
Yeah, so the rule set intrigues me. I'll jump on it and make it, and it's fun.
Hmm.
And I do share because I do hope other people will also find it fun. But
Yeah.
if there were no other people and it was just me, I would still definitely write puzzles. So
Right.
yeah, I agree with that completely. And I kind of feel like oh, I don't know. I guess I wish all setters were like that. If all setters just made puzzles for fun because they enjoyed doing it, I think maybe the puzzles would be even better.
Yeah.
So, but it's easy to want people to like you or like your puzzles or to be amazed, and so certainly is a motivator for some people, but not for me.
Um, was there anything that we didn't discuss that you wanted to discuss before we ever started?
I'm sure that in an hour or two, something will come to mind. Be like, oh, I wanted to talk about that. Um, Nothing is coming to mind right now. Yeah. Rock
Rock.
Rat. I
Yeah,
love some of your puzzles. You're the one who has the factor lines, is that right? I think.
I
Forgive
think
me
so.
if I get my solvers or my setters. I have horrible memory, like I said, but I do like the factor line. That was kind of a um, fun rule set. So
He said your feedback has been really nice as a new setter. Do you
yeah,
think it's
so
important to like support the new setters in that way?
I think so. Yeah. So I try to solve some things in there, and I always let people know if I'm solving them so that they can see and watch and get that immediate feedback
Hmm.
of where somebody gets stuck or whatnot. Usually I get stuck because, like I said, I can't find it because I'm not that great, or I don't know how many times I've been solving somebody's in voice chat, and um, they just tell me to use Sudoku, right, to scan, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a three. Oh, that makes this way easier.
Yeah,
So that's another reason why if I'm solving somebody else's, I'll try to do it online because I don't want to miss things just because I can't scan. Um, so
that's the best part about puzzle streaming is if you miss something like that, people are like, the three in box five is fixed. It's fixed. Please
yeah,
fill it
it's a hidden
in.
single. Come on. I do wish that, or I kind of want to submit something to ranks to solve online, or something, or I guess Zeta does it too with the bet cells, and I kind of want to like know that this cell is a hidden single that's going to come up in the puzzle at some point, and I want that to be the bet cell so that they will find that hidden single and not get caught up in some other parts of it, but yeah. I am so bad at scanning. That is one reason why I might sometimes solve something um, online using Earth puzzles. I'm sure I'm going to get all sorts of hate for this, but there will be a lot of times where I will use the step. Somebody made a puzzle. Um, I'll open it in F puzzles. I'll switch to setting mode, and I'll fill in what I can, and then occasionally I'll hit like the button on the solve because
Hmm.
something will come up that it's a hidden single, like, oh, there it is, or the solution path button. It'll come up and it'll go and go and go, and a couple of different things will go in there and so forth. Um, yeah, I'm sure that's cheating, but I'm not sure if I consider it cheating because most of the puzzles that I do that on are the ones that have super weird rule sets, like uh, Willy Wonka's cages, where there's no totals given, and these two are consecutive, and they got a white dot, and these
Right.
two are ratios, and they got a black dot, and so it's not like F puzzles is solving it.
Hmm.
They're literally just taking any Sudoku, any givens, and finding the next thing. And so I will sometimes cheat a puzzle like that. But I call it using all of your available resources. Um, kind of like when my students ask, can I use a calculator or something like that? Is that cheating? I'm like, no, go for it. It's an available resource. You can use it. Um, so that's my biggest weakness solving is scanning, and so um, I'll occasionally do that.
I mean, before I give up on a Sudoku that I'm solving, like a testing one, I usually throw it into F puzzles and just look because I don't want to just like stop solving it if there's just some hidden single that I didn't see and it's
Exactly.
obvious. And if I send it to the setter and they're not answering, and I'm a very impatient person, so like don't answer in 10
Yeah.
minutes, I'm putting it into F puzzles.
And if you send me one of my puzzles that you got stuck on, if it's something about Sudoku, I'm not going to be able to
Yeah.
spot it. If it was a key part of the solve, then I might be like, oh yeah, you got to think about how these numbers interact, and that's too big over here.
Hmm.
But generally, if I get stuck, it's something like that. But,
Hmm.
or if it has any sort of set in it, then I'm
Oh
out.
yeah.
I can't wrap my mind around 4 or 5 different rows in a column, and this then has one extra set of the digits 1 through 9. And Simon can talk about Scrabble tiles all he wants, and I get it watching him do it, but there's no way I would spot that or look in that
Yeah.
particular arrangement of things.
In that way, set is kind of like a Y wing where you can understand why it's true, but spotting it is just like the end of all
Yeah,
uh, Sudoku
can
skill.
happen.
Uh, Daniel Silverstone asked a different setter, but it's a good question anyway. Do you find yourself setting in long chunks of continuous time, or do you come at the problem bit by bit over a long period?
A little of both.
Hmm.
Um, it's one of the nice things about having a piece of paper. I can start a puzzle, and if I'm making progress on it, I'll just keep going and keep going and keep going, and it won't let go of me until it's finished. Sometimes, sometimes that will take 2 or 3 or 4 hours in a row, and then I'd look up and be like, oh crud, it's noon and I haven't had breakfast yet, and
Yeah.
I got all this grading to do. I just wasted my morning on this puzzle, and it's broken. So that certainly happened. But then there's also, I'll just write a clue, and that's all I can do for the day, and pick it up the next day, and oh, okay, yeah, let's add a clue here, and so forth. So they kind of, puzzles can take a setting life of their own. Sometimes they happen in a setting, like literally one sitting, just the whole thing,
Yeah.
start to finish. Many times it's multiple times, multiple attempts, 2 or 3 pages of redraft and try again and whatnot. So I don't have a normal, I guess. It's all over the place in how that goes. But
Yeah. Interesting. Um, I know someone asked this at some point. I don't remember who, but they'd asked someone what was like a very important or key piece of advice you got early on in setting that you would like to give to other new setters?
definitely obvious answer to this one. Solve or set like you would solve. So don't just throw things onto a grid and try to make it happen. I mean, I did that, right? My very first
Hmm.
puzzles were literally a already solved grid,
Right.
and let's try to make cages in various spots and see, see if that works, and then reset it and start. That was awful setting. When I can't remember who said it, maybe Eric Fox or something like that. Early days of Discord. It's probably pinned, right? Everything that is of any value is pinned somewhere in a Discord. Um, but yeah, when somebody said, put a clue down, solve it until you can't solve it anymore. Um, and then add another clue and solve it until you can't solve it anymore. Um, that's how you create a solution path.
Hmm.
And it just made sense. And I tried
Yeah.
it, and the first puzzle I made with it was like great. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, obviously that's how you're supposed to set a puzzle. How did I not know that? How
Yeah.
did I make these 2 or 3 or 4, 5 dozen puzzles on Excel sheets? That yuck. So yeah, that's definitely the recommendation I would have. I'd always suggest starting on paper and always just kind of one clue at a time.
Hmm.
And for the love, always just do it on the top line so we know where to look, because it's so frustrating to not know how to start a puzzle.
Yeah.
So if I've spent 20 minutes and I haven't made any progress on the puzzle, I get so frustrated. So um, give me an easy in, and hook me. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to like it. So
My
that's
favorite
what I
comment.
that's what I like about Richard's puzzles. Is there's always
Yeah.
something that's
There's
going to
always
get you
something
in,
there.
and once
Yeah.
once you're in, you're going to make progress. And I think that's true of
Definitely.
my puzzles. If you try a RockyRoer puzzle, like get past the weirdness of the rule set, you're probably going to finish it and like it. I think a lot of people are just like, well, that's weird. Nope. And I get that. It's okay. But I don't generally have super hard puzzles. I think people get turned away because of math, right? And,
Mhm.
oh, I hate math. But anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think one of the best things that someone can say before even they get into a puzzle is they just look at it and they're like, I think this part is just broken because that doesn't work. Oh wait, it does work because like that's the
Yeah,
most satisfying comment to me, I
that
think.
is very satisfying when that sort of
Yeah.
thing happens. So didn't you just do that for one of my puzzles, I thought? I can't remember, but
I don't remember.
anyway, yeah. I had that exact conversation with somebody in
Hmm.
recent times. And I was like, think again, it does work.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
It's weird that the fact that they think it was broken means they're looking in the right place. They know, like, this looks weird. Something is off about this. It looks broken.
Mhm.
It's good.
I've done that with a lot of my the outside clues for sandwiches. So maybe there's a clue on this side, and there's also a clue on the exact opposite side. And people are like, well, don't those have to be the same? Yeah, they do. That's why I did it, because now you know that this is this.
Yeah,
How can it be different? Right, it can't
it's
be.
not.
Oh.
That's the point. Um, Along with the question about what's the sort of like best piece of new advice is what's a piece of advice that you got early on that you would say is a really bad piece of advice that people tend to give newer setters?
Um, Not sure that I've ever had an experience of a super bad piece of advice. Maybe posted on LMD. I don't know. Not that that's awful, but yeah. No, I don't know. I don't really. I don't remember ever having any super bad advice. So,
I think the one that sticks out to me is that the puzzle should have one solve path, and if it goes anywhere else, it's a bad puzzle.
yeah. I mean that there are has been said, and there are
Yeah,
people that believe that. And I would think that that's more than anything that maybe just be a personality thing.
right.
That's not for me. But there are others where carving a very specific path is fun, and to be on the discovery side of that,
Hmm.
can be fun. A lot of um, Simon's puzzles where he solves it are that right. He found that one path, and he really likes being excited about that. But
Do you feel like do you feel like you think differently than the people who are solving or testing your puzzles, or do you feel like you can sort of think like they do, like mind read them?
I I doubt that I think like them, because yeah, I'm kind of weird, and random ideas will pop into my head, and random songs. So I've learned over the years that people don't generally think like me.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, it's kind of hard for me to get a heartbeat on what other people are thinking. It probably would be better if interacted more with voice, right? If I watched people solve some of my puzzles online, and talk through it and so forth, that would definitely help. Um, so that might be something that I would encourage more solvers to do.
Hmm.
Is um, Go ahead and solve something online in chat, and it would be really beneficial, I think, for people to hear and see each other's thoughts and where they go easy and what they like about a puzzle. So Discord is so easy to do that with, and
Hmm.
so I generally don't put, I'll solve something in voice chat a lot, but I generally don't talk through it because my family is around and I don't feel
Yeah.
like bugging them. Or as soon as I start talking or about something, then I'm going to have a 5-year-old right here.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Daddy? And all this sort of stuff. So that's why I don't generally have my mic on when I solve something like that. But um, I think it would be really beneficial if we had somebody always solving something in either voice one or voice two, and not just doing other random things like playing some boxing game or whatever it is that has been really popular lately. Um,
That's
I
cool
think
too,
that
but
would be sure, but just have like an off-topic voice chat so that when somebody's trying to do an actual solve, it doesn't get flooded with other things. But whatever, I'm pretty easygoing, so
yeah.
it takes a lot to upset me.
I don't know.
Yes, Nordy, a blessing and a curse. Mostly a blessing. So, but every once in a while, it's a little bit challenging. I don't know if it's boxing or fighting or who is
Is
it?
it
Jez is always on there doing something off topic. It's like,
Jez
no,
plays a lot of different
I'm trying
games.
to solve a puzzle, and you're talking about whatever this fighting game is. I'm like, what? But
Oh,
that's
it's
why I
it's
make
Slay
all
the
my
Spire, I think, is the one you're thinking of.
sure. I don't know.
Oh, anyways, Curaban asked someone at some point, I don't remember who, what's the most interesting slash unexpected way you've seen a constraint used?
Um, I don't know. I've seen so many different constraints. It's hard to answer. Um,
Was there a time someone used your constraint and you're like, I didn't even know that was possible?
no, please do. Somebody hop on one of my puzzles and find a new thing that I didn't find with a rule. That would be really cool. That's a fun thing. If you pick a rule and just go with it, and don't flood it with so many other thoughts, and just try to make it, try to glean something out of it. There's usually a lot of cool logic in a simple thing like these two cells have to be prime or whatever. I don't know, but so challenge accepted. Yeah, go for it. Please do. And let me know what the puzzle is. So I really like Bullseye has or some of those hidden things. I really like the arrow capsule idea,
Oh
but
yeah,
without
yeah.
an arrow. Do something.
It refers to
That
something
that's
else, yeah.
I think that's underutilized. So I really want to do some more of those things with products. Multiplication is, um, and if I have a total of 84, it can be broken down as 7 times 12 or 3 times 28 or whatever. There's a limited number of ways you can do
Hmm.
things with multiplications, much more limiting than sums. And so I think products can probably be used more often in puzzles in interesting ways. Um,
Yeah.
and like I said, those open circles or arrow capsules, especially with 2 digits, because so then your tens digit is limited and your
Hmm.
ones digit is limited because it has to be odd or even. Um, I enjoy that sort of deduction a lot and would love to see more puzzles like that people
Yeah.
use. Arrows themselves, I've they often lend themselves to some challenging set ideas that I don't get into. So a pure arrow puzzle probably is going to get swiped left by me, but right, whichever one is the not do. Um,
Left, I think.
but if it has a capsule in some unique way, um, uh, I think that would be good. So I've enjoyed seeing how people have used that before.
Right. I feel like we've answered all these questions. So, and it's only 2 minutes out. So I guess we'll just say thank you so much for coming on and talking. It was so great to hear
Sure.
your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. So I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and heart towards setting, and I hope some people may be inspired to try a RockyRoer puzzle. I
Yeah.
hope some people might be inspired to post more ideas, just random ideas in the setting channel. I hope I don't tick anybody off by just doing that. I have part of the community when I do that. I want people to have ideas and not
Yeah.
get stuck. How do I make a puzzle? So I would love to see other people just write puzzle idea and
Hmm.
throw something out there, and not be afraid to keep it secret and hidden and all that sort of stuff.
You're
I'm pretty
gonna.
sure that if I made a puzzle with your idea, I would definitely say when I published it,
Yeah.
Meme had this idea and let me run with it. And I think so. I don't think you need to worry about keeping
No.
your ideas secret. Um,
If anything, when people write like this other person had this idea and I ran with it, it kind of seems like the other person is like the sensei or something. Like
exactly.
they're
Yeah.
the overlord who has blessed this with an idea, you know.
And he couldn't be bothered to write it himself,
Yeah.
so I made it for him.
He sent out his underlings to make the puzzle for him. And they praise him
Yep.
for it. Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, it's been a lot of
Yeah.
fun, and I appreciate this. And if anybody ever wants to run with one of my ideas, send it to me, and I'll test it, because that's exactly why I posted it up there in the first place, is because I
Hmm.
wanted to see a puzzle like it. So, please do. Cool.
Any, anyways,
Off to watch Zeta Math.
yeah. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, chat. Yes, go watch Zeta Math. His stream is on, I think, almost now. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. We have a Patreon. If you can spare change, then sign up for the Patreon. And if you want to support me, but if you can't spare change, don't sign up for the Patreon. We have a Discord as well that you can join, and people ask questions to Rocky during this interview through that Discord. So if you're not on the Discord, you're not going to be able to ask questions to the next guest, who I think is KNT. And then we have more
Hey.
guests lined up, which is going to be great.
All right. Thanks a
Have a
lot,
good one.
Meme. It was good to
Yeah.
see you. So, a wonderful
Have a good
afternoon.
rest of your day.
Thanks.
More disc golf, maybe.
I will definitely go out later on tomorrow. So,
Nice. Fun. Anyways, bye everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.